Right, so this is how I would break down the Coinbase chart. So as we see, perfect little U shape. So what sticks out to me here? So typically when I get a chart like this, I will look to establish levels. So a level for me is where you get two or more bar closures next to each other at the same place. And what I will do is I will mark these out on starting on the highest time frame and then moving down the time frames. So this one, obviously on the monthly, we go back to April 2021. So what levels stick out to me here? So I think there is a level there. So on TradingView, you just press Alt H to draw in a vertical line. That one there. We've got an interesting level there. We've got one there. We've got an interesting one here that encapsulates a few candles on this side. What else do we have? Those are relatively close, so we'll count those in and we can adjust those. And then in the mid-range we've got there. And I think that's everything that we have, certainly on the monthly. I will also go up to the top of this wick and put a green one in and label that all-time high. And similarly, I would go down here, put one in. Oop, it didn't go in. There we are. And I would make this one red and I would type in all-time low. And then everything in between, I would write monthly. Right, and also I think of interest in this one is I will put a golden line here, and I will put IPO. So that is the price in which it IPO'd. So we're approaching that actually, which is I find quite interesting. I think that's everything. That's probably not quite a level there. There's maybe a level there, but you actually will put it in. And I want that to be white. So there we are. Right, so I would then drop down to the weekly and see where we are from a level perspective. So as we can see, going across to this side for some of the historical price action, where do we see weekly candles? There's not a huge amount of weekly candles next to each other. Those two are a little bit off, but we have that covered there. I think you've got one here at 230, which is slightly below. I'd probably keep these ones here, and nothing is sticking out at me up here. So moving along, what do we have? So there is a nice daily level there. So I will actually no, this is the weekly, isn't it? So weekly, nothing there. Going along here, we can see these are covered. This is interesting because we see this big accumulation range. There's a weekly level there, slightly below the monthly. And we can get rid and play around with some of these levels as we need to. And we see that these levels are quite interesting, particularly that weekly one we've just put in, because that was the start of this impulse. So this impulse move here started on this weekly level. So you see we gain this level, push up to this weekly resistance, flip this, and then upward expansion. There is a weekly level there, which is an interesting reversal point. And going along, we see that this weekly level is quite interesting because this is where you have the second impulse. So as we go up, the monthly level here we can see acted as a really lovely impulse again further. Not a huge amount of levels up here, as we can see candles come down and testing these. This one here I think is interesting. I think if we maybe move this monthly level down a little bit to capture these, we can see plays along in there, and then up here those two are slightly off, but there's not a lot better up here, so I will Alt-H that and I will put a weekly going along. What else do we see? Again, this monthly level is where we see the impulse. Those are relatively close and there's not a huge amount up here, so we will put weekly. We see this weekly was the formation of the all-time high. So got some interesting places to look at. So if we move down onto a daily perspective, what can we see? So let's have a look over here and see in this previous price range whether we have any daily levels to look at. There is a daily level here which is quite interesting at 327. What else do we have? That's quite interesting. That is a really interesting candlestick pattern. So you see a huge amount of buy and sell pressure at that point. So 318 is likely to be quite important. Go across, there's nothing over here, nothing over here. We see big sort of price voids in this area. Coming down, there's an interesting daily level here. Go across, across, across. Not a huge amount. We see back into this accumulation, down. Not a huge amount here. Actually, there is a daily level here at what's that? 112. Move that down slightly. 112.48. So daily. Going across, what do we have? Really interesting candlestick pattern. You probably have a daily level here, but it's so close to this upper level, I don't think it's particularly relevant, and I'd rather take this daily level here as a barometer. So we see captures quite a few candles in that daily level, and we see this zone of accumulation, push up. Is there anything here? No. Is there anything here? Nope. Nope. Daily level here, really interesting level. We can see daily, and it's formed resistance previously. So whether we see this price level again, I don't know. But yeah, what else do we have? This is a really interesting level here, this 78. So I will put that on because we can see that there was a really sort of small candle there that was then retested on the upside, and then that was where we saw an impulse come down. This I think is too close to the previous daily level, but we can see just where it sort of respects those previous levels if we go along, and then we've got this, the impulse. Do we have anything here to let us know? There is an interesting point there that I'll put in where we can see it push through a daily level up to the top there, and then yeah, we can just see like lot of violent price action here. Daily level there. So we're getting quite a lot on this chart now, so it's getting slightly on Kemp, but yeah, we can take out what we need to. Again, you can see little daily level here, and it formed a quite interesting point to bounce from. So daily, that is really interesting there. 224. Actually, move that down slightly. There we are, so 2. So we've got a lot on this chart now. So going across, interesting point here, 294. Trying to get some price action up around here to chart. You see that range, and then this drop out, regain, and then the impulse. Nothing too much here apart from there, which we can see 377 was a daily level, and then this drop off, right? So if we go back onto a weekly and zoom out, so there's a lot to look at on this chart. So we've got quite a lot of levels, mostly down here. So I think where we would look at here, I think for me the next range is down here. We can see this daily level. So if I was to come and zoom in here, we've got quite a lot around here. It's quite a convoluted chart, but you would look here potentially for either, you've actually got a weekly level there. So what I will do actually is get rid of this daily level, pull that down, and this is a really, really interesting level. So you can see that this weekly level was where you had that impulse, and then it came and tested the daily level, straight up, bounced off, weekly level and down. Right, so, gosh, this is convoluted. Right, so next we will look at some volume scenarios, but we can see various points of interest down here. For me, this fair value gap will likely get filled, and I think this fair value gap here should also get filled, and then at that point you're potentially looking for entries in this daily level, maybe even get a retag of this and take the liquidity there. But in terms of where the volume lies, let's have a look. So if we get what's called an FRVP, stretch it over, where is the areas of volume? So we can see most of it down here. So that's the brush, not the rectangle. So we see this area here is key around this weekly level, as we've previously said. We've got a zone of interest here at the bottom of this fair value gap. You've got pretty much quite a large box here that's interesting, and then a little bit of volume around here, and this area as well. You can see slightly. There we are. Right, so get rid of that. So this is very messy now. So what I will do is go back to the daily, come in. So where are we looking at this? So we can, just to make things even more convoluted, turn this on and we see fair value gap to the upside, really strong impulse candle, and this big order block here. So trading this, you would potentially look at this zone here being a bounce spot. So 258 could be an interesting area to go long, and from there you would likely target closing this fair value gap, coming up, potentially closing this, and you would maybe look at seeing some resistance up here around the weekly and the daily level. Should this not hold, you're then looking to see this gap get filled in, and so you'd then be looking at a retest of this area down here, this 197, this 189. Should that fail to hold, I think you would then be looking at either a retest of this monthly and weekly level. Oops, got rid of the wrong thing. Of this weekly level, or you would maybe look at a tag of this liquidity down here. So as you can see, we've got a back test here from a trend reversal. So if I put that there, and there's also another, actually no, that's been taken. Yeah, so that's how I'd look at it. So potentially here is your first zone of interest. Then this area here is interesting. Should it fall through, you might get a reaction just above this fair value gap, or if they decide to set the fair value gap, you're then looking at a retest of here with a potential wick down to here.